What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today what I wanted to do is go ahead and try out how good running the Elite Dungeon 4 would actually be. Of course at the moment everybody knows that it is better to just kill Zamorak over and over again, get through your dungeon skips and just skip through straight to the boss. However, you do need to do 25 dungeon runs, but at the same time, personally I prefer running dungeons than just killing a boss and teleporting out and then killing the boss and then teleporting out. For me it gets a little bit repetitive, a little bit too boring, and I would much rather have it that broken up by running the dungeon in between. As you guys know, I do a lot of elite dungeon runs, and that's just because that's my favorite way to do PvM in this game. So what I wanted to find out is it worth running Elite Dungeon 4, and how much would you make per hour if you did choose to do Zamorak this way by running the dungeon, killing Zamorak, and then running the dungeon again, just like it was a regular elite dungeon. So in this video, that's what we're going to find out. I'm going to do 10 hours of ED4, and then we're going to see how much loot we get at the end, and if we get any rares, we'll discount that and take it away from the total value, and we'll work out how much you can expect to get without a rare, because obviously you can't guarantee you're going to get a rare every time you do this. If you enjoy this video, do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and let's go. Okay, so before we do get started and get to the actual loot and stuff, there's a few things that are worth mentioning. And those few things is, of course, I was running this dungeon at around about, I would say just under 3 kills an hour. So I would manage to get to Zamorak and kill Zamorak at around about the 22-minute mark, meaning I couldn't fully get 3 kills, but I would do 2 kills, and then I'd get back to the boss at the Chaos Dungeon, and then my aura would run out. So I would reset the aura every single time this happened. This way I knew that I was doing a full 10 hours and I wasn't overlapping anything anywhere. So I always did this. I ran it off of 10 full aura hours. That's how I tracked this and how I went down that road of doing it. Towards the end, however, I was actually getting 3 kills an hour on the last couple of hours. I did manage to get 3 kills an hour, I scraped it in. And so by the end of this, I did end up with a total of 29 kills. So we did manage to get 29 kills of Zamorak and the full elite dungeon clears in 10 hours. The next thing to keep in mind is that Zamorak does have separate loot as well, and we are not only talking about the loot from the dungeon, we're including Zamorak's loot too, as you will still be clearing Zamorak at the end of this. All loot has been tracked on my the drop tracker thing that you've got in the bottom corner there, so this will track everything from the chest and from Zamorak himself. At the end of the actual 10 hours, I will look at the chest and we'll have a look and see how much is in there, and then we'll also bank all of that and just go through this list and just take everything out from that list, and then that's what our total profit is going to be. Everything that we get is going to be tracked in here, absolutely everything. And from start to finish of this, I will not do any other PvM except for this Zamorak. I won't touch any other boss. I won't kill any other NPC or anything like that. We're just going to do the 10 hours from start to finish. And so this is going to allow us to have an accurate loot tracker of exactly what we did get. The next thing to mention is this is probably only going to be worth it if you are using the Zamorakian Undercity Lucky Charms. You can get these from the Dungeoneering Reward Shop, the Elite Dungeon Reward Shop, and these do cost 15,000 Dungeoneering tokens each. I can however say that these are absolutely worth the actual points, as the amount that you're going to return from these will always be it's just worth it. This is the best way to spend your Dungeoneering tokens if you are wanting money in return. Finally, I will mention the Elite Dungeon. Running the Elite Dungeon is pretty damn difficult in anything but Crypt Bloom. Obviously you can still do it, but personally I find it very difficult, and it was a hell of a lot easier with magic and with Crypt Bloom armor as well. Greater Chain is incredible in this dungeon, and of course Crypt Bloom stops you getting absolutely smashed to hell. Finally, I am not using any Death Touch darts on the Jailer. I will be killing him myself every single time to give an example of exactly how long it would take, as of course if you're running this for money, throwing 5 mil every time you run anyway is probably not going to be worth it, as Death Touch darts are valued at around about 5 million GP each. Now, it is worth keeping in mind that if you are running the dungeon, you do actually get an increased amount of trash loot when you kill Zamorak at the end. So this means that if you kill Zamorak, for example, in normal mode, all of these dungeon runs that I did were in normal mode. If you do kill Zamorak in normal mode, then you are probably expecting around about 1.5 to 2 million GP in loot when you do actually finally kill him. However, if you run the dungeon, then that can be increased, and I was quite often getting between 3 to 4 million GP in trash loot just for a normal mode kill. So while you're not killing anywhere near as many actual Zamorak bosses during this, you are kind of sometimes getting double the loot that you would normally get. So of course that is going to impact your total loot. Finally, the Lucky Charms are used to get yourself the Sliver drops. The Slivers is where the bunny is going to be coming from through this, and what could make this dungeon absolutely worth running. Without the Slivers, I can tell you this dungeon is not going to be worth running for GP. On its own, there's no reason to do this, but I know for a fact with the lucky charms, if you add them to your preset, you are going to be getting those sliver drops, and of course, then you can have a hell of a lot more money off of those. After I've run the dungeon, I'll be working out how much each of those slivers are worth as of making this video and how much I got in return for each one, and so you'll be able to see just how big of an impact and how important they are. I'm starting this video off with 200 Zamorakian lucky charms, so at the end of it we can see exactly how much we did use, and then that will also give you a sense of how many lucky charms you will want to use per hour. Okay, so with all of that stuff out of the way, let's go and talk about the actual dungeon run itself and all the things you can expect, and then we'll talk about the loot and all that sort of good stuff and see how much I did actually make across 10 hours. Okay, so a few things to mention about the dungeon run itself. I ran it in normal mode. The reason I ran it in normal mode is once you start pushing the enrage up, it takes a hell of a lot longer to clear this dungeon. So running it in normal mode to me just made sense. We went ahead, we did that, and I got through them in around about just under 3 kills an hour, as mentioned before. I find it a hell of a lot easier to do this dungeon in magic because Crit Bloom is incredibly good. And of course, Greater Chain makes things even easier. Doing clears with Greater Chain and also Magma Tempest made life way easier, and honestly, it is definitely something that if you have access to, you want to be using that here, in my opinion. I used a Calgarian Demon and I made sure I was on Maniacal for most of the dungeon. There was a couple of hours, I think only 2, where I used Magierite instead, but I used Maniacal for the rest of it. The reason being is as you run through the dungeon, your accuracy is actually pretty low, so you want to make sure you're on an accuracy aura at some point. Magierite wasn't too bad, but I did notice that I was splashing a lot on some of the mages, and of course, your damage scales on the demons, the big demons during the dungeon, based on your accuracy. Your damage has nothing to do with it, it's all your accuracy. So of course, being on Maniacal does help with that too. Now, as I said, towards the end of the actual 10 hours, I did end up getting 3 kills an hour, and it was pretty okay. Like, I had a couple of minutes left at the end of that too, but the reason being is I did learn quite a few pulls and locations and like ways to clear the rooms a lot quicker, and if you guys want to see this, then I'll make an extra video talking about an actual dungeon run guide, going over all of the different pulls that I learned and the fastest way to get through this and all that sort of good stuff. So if you do want to see that, let me know in the comments. So one thing that many people have put off with for this dungeon is the jailer. The jailer, you kind of have to chase him around a little bit, but guys, the way I look at this and the way that I can think this is actually kind of better than other bosses in other elite dungeons is it's not Masuta. You don't have to stand in a room and kill Masuta and wait for the waters and just stand there and be like, can I go through now? This does delay you and slow you down. However, it isn't a time gated thing. You go through, you kill him and do as much damage as you can, and the second you hit his damage threshold, he teleports off, you go and chase him, he teleports off again, and then you kill him. Now, this compared to another boss like Masuta, for example, is a hell of a lot better and less effort and less frustrating than being time gated by something. Many people also think that, you know, well, you don't get anything out of it. You can't get a drop out of it. There's no rare or anything. And I mean, Masuta has a Masuta War Spear. There's nothing special about him. He is just a time gated boss. The same goes for Taraket. Again, it's the same sort of thing. There's not any really time gated in Taraket except for the phasing and stuff, but this is a hell of a lot easier and less effort than it is to do Taraket. So you can keep running through the dungeon and get out of the way. As for this second boss here, what I was doing is I was going into the room and I was killing off the mages on each side. So you kill one mage on the right hand side, one mage on the left hand side, and leave the other ones. Then when you trigger the fight in the middle, none of the mages are going to get pulled and you don't have to spend your time clearing them off. If you don't kill these 2 mages, then when the double demons do spawn in this fight, they are going to pull those other 2 mages and you get stacked out pretty quick. After that, just kill the boss off, make sure you dodge the smoke and stuff, and move on to the next room. In the next room, you've got the demon and all the mages. Make sure you surge and blade a dive into the distance of the demon, and then go straight to killing these 3 mages that you see me killing on screen right now. The reason you want to do that is because the demon will eat the other 3 mages as like heal. I guess not eat, but like sacrifice them to heal himself. Even if he's not taken any damage, as long as he's aggroed on you, he will do that. Meaning by the time you've killed these 3, he's probably sacrificed the other 3 and it makes his life a lot easier. After that, you're good to go. You're in Zamorak and teleport out, reset and whatnot, and then grab your kill. Once you start pushing your enrage up for a dungeon, you end up with different NPCs. The demons and the other trash mobs get a hell of a lot more HP as well, meaning it takes you a lot longer to get through. However, if you are on normal mode, or if you're on 50% or 100% or whatever in rage, the amount of slivers that you do proc is going to be the exact same. Slivers come from the lucky charms, and killing things with the lucky charms in your inventory is what procs them. If you're on 50% or 100%, it doesn't matter, the lucky charms will still proc at the same rate. You just have to get a little bit lucky on how many you do get. Finally, before we look at the loot, I will mention that the blue slivers are the ones that you want to get, the slivers of pain, and then the yellow ones are the slivers of power. Those are okay, they're not as terrible, they're the second best. And then finally, the slivers of strength, the ones that you kind of don't want to get. They're absolute trash, they're not worth anything whatsoever almost, but we're going to talk about the values of those now. Okay, so talking about the slivers. Now, once you gather the slivers, it is actually better at the moment, or it was for me, to get 15 of each and use those 15 to make the enchantments that actually take a archaeology relic, a few little bits of supplies, and then that's pretty much it. It's 15 slivers each, so you do use more slivers than if you made like the channeler's ring upgrade or the glove upgrades and that sort of stuff. But this way, when I worked it out, these were the biggest profit makers. Now, for the pains, I made the enchantment of affliction. To do this, you need onyxes, then you need just one necromantic focus, which you can get from archaeology, absolutely free, and that is it. You need 15 slivers of pain, you make it is a massive amount of profit. The cost is literally just 3 onyxes. That's all it is. It's 3 onyxes, and that's the full cost. So you can absolutely make a ton of profit off of these as long as the affliction enchantment is still going for a lot of money. I sold my enchantment affliction for a total of 206,843k. 206 mil, 207 mil almost, just from the slivers of pain. The slivers of power, I made the enchantment of dispelling. The enchantment of dispelling sold for 62,700k. This means that for 15 slivers, I was making around about 4.1 million GP per power sliver. They're still pretty good. It's not 14.6 mil each like the pains, but for 4.1 mil each, this is pretty damn good considering they could drop in groups of 5. The enchantment of dispelling is made with 10 serenic scales, 15 slivers of power, and 3 chaos stars, which is again an archaeology relic. So again, it's just literally the cost of the serenic scales, and then if you want to buy the materials for your chaos stars, then of course those too. Finally is the strength slivers. Now with these, I'm not too sure on what to make, to be honest. I looked through the prices. I don't think it really matters too much. I think overall the price and the profit comes out more or less the same. I made the gloves, as once I did work out the sort of profits, they were looking too close for me to bother going out and getting archaeology relics and whatnot, so I did sell the gloves off, and I did only make a profit of 250k each. So that means that I sold the gloves for literally 44 million GP. However, I only made 3.7 or 3.8 mil profit on making these gloves because of the supplies were so expensive. So it really wasn't that good, and honestly, the strength slivers, I knew these weren't that expensive, but they're really not worth that much whatsoever. So I'll put on screen now all of the individual slivers and their values for you to look at, and you can see exactly how much those are worth. And now we're going to look at the total loot and then call the video an end. Alright, so that is our 10 hours of Zamorak dungeon runs, Elite Dungeon 4 runs done. 121,707,000 GP in random trash loot. But the big ticket thing, that's a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. That's still 12 mil for 10 hours. 12 mil an hour, sorry, in just trash loot. But the big thing is going to be these slivers down here. Now, we did get a Vecna skull, which is pretty interesting as well, but still not worth anything. But these slivers are where the money's at, right? So, unfortunately, we can't actually make the sliver of power one, as you need 15 for this. But these are still, I'll still work out how much it is. I have 3 in the bank, so I can make the thing, work out how much it would be, and I'll put it on screen at some point as well anyway. We're getting 12 slivers of power, 18 slivers of strength, and 14 slivers of pain. This is a lot of money. Now, I'm going to take into account the value of these extra slivers that I don't get anyway, because if you continue doing this, you can get them and you can convert them. Let's go ahead, work out the full amount, and on the next bit, you guys will have the full amount. So I'll work all this out right now. Okay, so the totals that we did get for that after selling everything is gone. I've sold all of the enchantments, I've used all that stuff, and I've worked out and took out any extra money that I had to include for the slivers to make them into the actual things. And we did end up with the total of 508,649k. That is absolutely pretty damn good. So if you look at it like that, the 10 hours, I made 50.8 mil per hour. That's still pretty damn good, right? And obviously, I did actually get a rare. I got a Vestments of Havoc hood, which I did sell for 41 mil. So it's one of the cheapest rares. And of course, you do have to factor that in if you're looking at a total value and comparing it to rates like ED1, 2, or 3, because without a rare, we were making 46.7 mil an hour just using the lucky charms. So if I take off the 41 mil, then we do leave ourselves with 467 million GP across the 10 hours. So without a rare, you can still expect around about 45, I would say between 45 and 50 mil an hour, seeing as that's where we sat. And obviously, depending on how the slivers go, I got way more strength than I did of the other ones. If they balanced out in a better way, we could have made a hell of a lot more money. So looking at probably about 45 to 50 mil an hour for running ED4 without counting any rares. Once you factor in the rares, the bow pieces and all that sort of stuff, which I'm not going to do because I wanted to see the actual whole amount of that anyway, because if you're chasing rares, then just kill Zamorak, of course. But with that, the value of running ED4 is going to jump through the roof. It's going to be absolutely crazy. If anyone wants to do the math and drop it in the comments, then feel free to do so. But other than that, guys, that is where we're at. We made ourselves a nice 46.7 mil an hour running ED4 without any rares, and including the vestments of the vestments of Havoc Hood, we did make ourselves a 50.8 mil an hour. Pretty crazy. So if you're wondering how good ED4 is for making money, if you're wondering on the total loot from running it for 10 hours, there you go. Make sure you're using Lucky Charms though, and of course I was getting just around about 3 kills an hour just underneath, and then 3 kills at the end. But hey, if you can do that, if you can match that, and you enjoy running dungeons, that is about what you can expect as of me making this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and other than that, I'll catch you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.